Yeah, in this course now, the next thing we are going to be looking at are errors that we come across in code. So errors in code are known to be called bug, whereas the process by which we use in correcting those errors is known to be called debugging. In programming, most people make error, including professionals, while working with their code, because there are some errors that you will write something and you expect it to behave in a way, but it is not behaving in that way that it's supposed to actually behave in. So there are some errors that you come across, and the ability to for a programmer or for anyone who is learning to program to debug an error and make correction is what give a programmer more strength. And you should try to learn how to debug your code as long as you are learning how to do something new. Try to look for what can actually happen, such as making mistakes intentionally, then working with those mistakes so that whenever you come across bugs while writing complex program, you'll be able to trace down wherever the errors are coming from. So, yeah, we are going to be looking at the three kinds of error that occur in program, such as syntax error, runtime error, and semantic error. It is useful to distinguish between them in order to track them down more quickly, because errors can tie you down for a longer period to solve a program problem, because your inability to understand where the error is coming from will make it so difficult for you to be able to track where the error is coming from and to make corrections to your code. So yeah, we are first looking at syntax error. Syntax error, when we're talking about formal language, we say this statement that are used in any formal language mean exactly what they say. So for us to have any error in programming, then most of those error might come from syntax when you misuse those syntax, such as, let's say for instance, trying to concatenate trying to use parentheses when you have opening parentheses and you forget the closing parentheses, then the program will be trying to find where it can find these closing parentheses, and when it can't find that, it will return an error saying you didn't complete your statement, because the interpreter is unable to compute what you actually mean by the statement you have written. A formal language means exactly what they say. So syntax error here, syntax error refer to the structure of a program and the rules about the structure. So these rules should be followed in order to avoid any error popping up on your screen. For example, parentheses have to come in matching pairs, so 1 plus 2 in parentheses is legal, but only closing parentheses such as 8 is a syntax error in programming. If there is a syntax error anywhere in your program, Python displays the error message and quits on that particular line that it finds the error, whereas it will run any successful program that are at the top line of the error. But once it gets to that line which the error take place, the Python interpreter will exist and return an error message. So you will not be able to run the program. During the first few weeks while learning to program, you might spend a lot of time tracking down syntax error, because this is a time where you try to learn and understand the language structure. You learn to understand the rules that govern everything that you are using in the program. Then you might come across syntax error more often. But the more you get more familiar with this program, then the lesser error you will come across while writing your program. Let's look at an example of syntax error. Let's say for instance I want to say, okay, print. We have looked at an examples like this. I want to print out my name, then I only close it with one quotation single double quotation mark and leaving out the closing parenthesis. Then it is expecting an additional line. If I try to use another enter, it won't work until I try to make an error. Then it will say syntax error, invalid syntax, perhaps you forgot a comma. But that is not the case here, because this print function need an opening parenthesis together with a closing parenthesis to enclose that, okay, I am done with whatever argument I'm trying to pass in into my print function. So this will return a syntax error, because the interpreter is trying to get what you actually mean by starting with an opening parenthesis but couldn't find the closing parenthesis. It will return an error to the screen. That is about syntax error. When you mix up the structure, or you mix up the rules that guide the behavior or how the program is to be written. That is syntax error. When you're looking at runtime error, the second type of error is a runtime error, so called because the error does not appear until after the program has started running. These errors are also called exception because they usually indicate that something exceptional and bad has happened. So this happen when the program is running. Runtime error are rare in programs. You will see first few chapter, but you might be a while before you encounter one. So we won't be looking much deeper into this, but we'll be looking at them as we progress in this course. We also have semantic error, the third type of error, which means related to meaning. Yeah, the meaning of your program when you actually write something and you expect it to behave in a way, but the program is not behaving in that way, not as a result of syntax error, but as a result of logic that is being performed. So if there's a semantic error in your program, it will run without generating error message, but it will not do the right thing. It will do something else. Specifically, it will do what you told it to do. Identifying semantic error can be tricky because it requires you to work backward. When you have to look at your code again, start from the first line, look at it, read it line by line, then for you to be able to get where the error is actually coming from by looking at the output of the program and trying to figure out what is going on. So it will be very difficult for you to track down semantic error. Let's look at an example here in our code when I get to write some code initially, but it returned an error. When I was trying to print out something here to the screen um without converting this to string. I leave out this string and I just try to concatenate these two things together. Whereas I have a string here and I have a number here, it return an error because let's see what that will return here again. I'm going to run the name of the program, which is stored in my func return. So which is stored in my func return dot py. Then it says okay, it return an error which says type error. It can only concatenate string and not float. So this print is expecting some type that you can perform any expression with. But here it is returning an error because it's expecting you to either add two integer or to concatenate two string. But here I have a string and I also have a float here which return an error in program. Then I can correct this by converting this to string and then output it to the screen, which will solve the problem that I have. So I can also come across another error. Let's say for instance, let me try to comment this out. I don't need this function. I can also try to make another error where I have to get the square root of anything. I can say okay, let's go into my math module here and work with that. I want to write another function which will do something actually. This function will give me the square root of a number. Let's say I define the function by saying def, then the name of the function that I want, I can just say it will be rt because it's going to give me the square. Let's say square is going to return the square of a number to me. Then this square will be taking a number as an argument, which should be num. I'm going to be finding the square of that value that is being passed into it. Then I'll say okay, it should return 2 times none. So whatever number is being passed into this function, it will be returned to the screen by saying 2 multiplied by the number. Then in this my function here, I can call that that function by saying okay, I have a variable that I can name square square of 2, then I can say it should call the maths function which I define myself, maths. Then I'm trying to call which function? I'm trying to call this square function. Then I use parentheses. Then this function is going to be taking an argument which is the number to be squared. Then I hit save. Then I come to the next line to print out the result, which I'll be saying print, because this function is not actually printing anything to the screen, but it is just returning a value, which is the math.square. The square function is returning something to any variable that will be holding that value. So print here is going to be saying, okay, print out what I have as my square 2. Then I save my program. Coming to this line here, I clear my screen first. Then I run the program again. It says 4. This line is returning 4. Yes, it worked fine because square root of 2 is 4 actually. So this worked fine, but this is not the actual behavior that I want. What if I want let's say the square root of different number such as 3, and here I want the square root of 4. Then here I rename my variable. I say 3, then this will be named 4. I can use this print function to generate these several statements by saying print 3 and here print 4. So I save my file and I run the program again, then see what it will bring. It says 4, which is the square root of 4, 2, which is give 4, the square root of 3, which is 9, but here it's returning 6. What is the problem? The square root of 4 is 16. The square of 4 is 16, but it's returning 8. What will actually be the problem? Then I go back into my module, which is maths module. I try to check out what the problem might be, but then I tend to realize that what I'm actually doing here is saying 2 multiplied by num. So when 2 is being multiplied by 3, it returns 6. 2 multiplied by 4 is returning 8. That is the error. But that is not what I actually want. I wanted to say num multiplied by num, which will return the square of any number, which means that number multiplied by itself. This kind of error do not return any error message and do not stop the program from running. But what it does is that it computes what I want, but not giving me what I actually intended, but what I have actually imputed. So now I have actually inputted what I actually intended, and let's say the result of that. This should still work fine because I just have to change it once here. I don't have to do that multiple places. So the square of 2 will still return the correct output here since I have made adjustments to the function. So now the square of 2 return 4, which is correct. The square of 3 return 9, which is correct. And the square of 16 return, the square of 4 return 16, which is actually correct. So yeah, the kind of error that is being returned is called semantic error, when it do not do the right thing. It do not do what I actually mean. So which means related to meaning, but it is not actually the meaning of what I want. These are the kind of error that I might come across. So tracking down semantic error is very tricky, but not difficult if you understand where the error is coming from and take a look at it by going back into the math module like I did here. I go back into the math module and I check for what actually could be the problem. Then I realized that I was multiplying by 2 instead of multiplying by this particular number that is being returned. Though it worked for a number which is 2, it returned the square root of 2, which is 2 multiplied by 2, luckily, but it doesn't work for the other numbers. So when if a code is not working as per what is expected, then it is known to be semantic error. So let us take a look at something simple here. Let's go back to let's just take a look at what we can have here. If I also have another print statement, then I have print open parenthesis, then I say hello. What actually happened here is that it's even indicating to me that, oh, it was not closed. This print is expecting a closing parenthesis, so this is an error. What if I save this file and I try to run the program? Let me clear my screen first, then I try to run the program again. It's now indicating an error message saying syntax error, this was never closed. So this is a syntax error when when the program in the interpreter is expecting some rule that's supposed to be followed while writing the code, or the rule are not being applied. I have a opening parenthesis and I'm not having it as closing parenthesis. So let's make correction here, but I want to ignore the second quote by deleting it and closing the parenthesis, which is what I have actually done here. I save my file and I come down here again to clear my screen, then rerun the program. It says, oh, syntax error again, unterminated string literal. So syntax error occur when the interpreter is expecting a particular rule to be followed in writing the code, but it is not actually coming up that way. That is syntax error. Whereas runtime error happen um are also called exception. So these are exception and can be found when I try to concatenate string and this float value together. It return an error. That is a runtime error. It doesn't indicate here that I'm missing any syntax, and um, the program up ahead works fine, but when this program is being executed, it return an error by saying, oh no, you are leaving out something here, which means it is a runtime error. So that is about errors that we can find in most programming language. Thank you for staying with us up to this moment. We will see you in the next video. Thank you.